The multiverse hypothesis is specifically relevant to explaining this fine-tuning. But there's a problem with it, and that is that if you have all these other universes out there, the very existence of these other universes does not explain the fine-tuning in our universe. And here's why.
In a recent video, Piers Morgan had Dr. Stephen Meyer on to talk about the existence of God. And in that video, Dr. Stephen Meyer proved without a shadow of a doubt that God absolutely exists, and all the evidence points to the fine-tuning of the universe. Let's check it out.
What is the Goldilocks zone? Another of your big bedrocks of your book.
Well, this is one way that the physicists refer to something that they call the fine-tuning of the universe, or sometimes they talk about it, the anthropic fine-tuning. The idea is that the most fundamental parameters of physics fall within very narrow ranges or tolerances, outside of which we have discovered life would not be possible. Even basic chemistry would not be possible. So the force responsible for the expansion of the universe, called the cosmological constant, is fine-tuned. An accepted value is to 1 part in 10 to the 90th power. So a smidge faster or slower in that expansion, and you either get a heat death of the universe or you get a big crunch, a great black hole. In either case, life is not possible. That's just one of many parameters that fall within that kind of a sweet spot. So sometimes the physicists do talk about are living in a Goldilocks universe. Luke Barnes has written a wonderful book about the fine-tuning. A physicist who also did his PhD at Cambridge has written a book called The Fortunate Universe. So these types of terms are now making their way into physics because physicists did not expect that life would depend upon such an exquisitely and improbably arranged set of basic parameters. But there we have it. They did. This is what they found.
What Stephen Meyer is saying is actually really important because it shows that our universe is so finely tuned that if anything, so much is shifted just a bit on that grid, life would not be possible. So if we had a little bit more or less gravitational pull, we would all die. If anything were to be added in our oxygen, a little bit more carbon dioxide, for example, we would all die. All the things that we have, all these different variables have to exist within a very perfect fine-tuning in order to even allow life to exist in the first place. And I think it's evidence like this that we're starting to see young people especially wake up and want to get involved in church and religion because more and more evidence is pointing to God.
And that comes back to the idea of a designer of all this.
Well, one of the scientists who first discovered these fine-tuning parameters was Fred Hoyle. And Hoyle was a pretty aggressive scientific atheist. He opposed the Big Bang and even gave the Big Bang its name, the Big Bang, as a kind of pejorative to make fun of the concept. But after he discovered some of these fine-tuning parameters, he had a shift in his philosophical perspective, in his worldview. And he was later quoted as saying that a common sense interpretation of the data, the fine-tuning data, suggests that a super intellect has monkeyed with physics and chemistry to make life possible. And I would say I love the way the monkeys always make it into the origins discussion, even if it's in physics.
Always goes back to monkeys.
Always monkeys, either at a typewriter or something.
There are other scientific hypotheses that don't use God as an explanation for all this. One is the simulation matrix theory, which Elon Musk talks about, or the idea of a multiverse. And when I had Neil deGrasse Tyson on, the astrophysicist, he said this. What was there before the beginning of the universe? Everyone asks this question. What's the simple answer?
Oh, I'm delighted I can respond to you. We don't know. But we got top people working on it. Okay.
You know what?
There may have been a multiverse.
I like that. I like the honesty.
Well,
So we genuinely don't know. People just don't know, right?
We don't know. There might have been a multiverse that's birthing universes, and we're one of them. But that just pushes the question one step further before that. What was around before the multiverse? So we just don't know. It's a frontier question right now.
What is your response? I mean, a lot of astrophysicists and Elon Musk and others think it's actually about the multiverse. For those who don't know, what is the multiverse? And what's your response to that?
Sure. The multiverse is the idea that, yes, the universe is incredibly finely tuned against all odds to make life possible. But the explanation for that is not that there was a cosmic fine-tuner, an intelligence who set the universe up so that life would be possible, but rather that there's a billion or gabillions of other universes out there that have different combinations of these different settings of these different parameters, and that ours just happens to be the lucky one. And the reason that we have life in our universe is not that it was designed for life, but rather there was a kind of giant cosmic lottery that is responsible, and that life must have arisen somewhere. And again, we just happen to be in the lucky universe. Oh, and my response.
Yes.
Yes, right. Well, the multiverse hypothesis is specifically relevant to explaining this fine-tuning. But there's a problem with it, and that is that if you have all these other universes out there, the very existence of these other universes does not explain the fine-tuning in our universe. And here's why. If those other universes are separate from our own, then there's no causal connection between them. So whatever happens in those other universes has no effect on our universe, including it has no effect on whatever process was responsible for setting the fine-tuning. So in virtue of that, multiverse proponents have had to propose a kind of common cause of all the universes, a universe generating machine of some kind that could allow them to portray our universe as the lucky winner of a giant cosmic lottery. And that's where the rub comes in.
But is that possible?
Well, yeah, there's a problem with it. And that is that all of the different universe generating mechanisms that have been proposed, some based on something called string theory, others based on something called inflationary cosmology, themselves require prior fine-tuning in the universe generating mechanisms. And so you explain the fine-tuning in this universe by invoking a universe-generating mechanism, but that mechanism in turn has to be finely tuned, and so you're right back to where you started without an ultimate explanation for fine-tuning. And yet we know from our experience that when we find something that's finely tuned, think of a French recipe or an internal combustion engine or a radio dial, fine-tuning always requires, in our uniform and repeated experience, which is the basis of all scientific reasoning, it always requires a fine-tuner, an intelligence. So given that the multiverse hasn't given an ultimate explanation for fine-tuning, the best explanation for fine-tuning is still intelligent design.
And there you have it. So even if you go into the Marvel cinematic universe and you enter the multiverse, there has to be something that even still caused it. A lot of atheists will confuse this with the God of the gaps theory, which is that if we can't explain it, it must be God. Well, that's not true. Because what we're actually doing is we're making observations based on what we do know, not based on what we don't know. And what we do know is that anything that is that tightly designed, that is that finely tuned, has to have a designer. It'd be as if you were walking along a forest floor and you were worked your way up this mountain and suddenly you found a brand new Ferrari. Well, you wouldn't expect that that Ferrari just appeared there. You would think that somebody put it there. Not only that somebody put it there, but that it's so finely tuned that it had to have been designed. You would not expect this Ferrari to have been naturally caused by various different processes, let alone evolve from a single-celled organism without some form of influence being put into it. So when we're looking at this idea on whether or not it's possible for God to exist, it is actually becoming astronomically more difficult to point out that he doesn't, because you have to now just simply appeal to mystery. And so if atheists accuse Christians or theists of bringing in the God of the gaps, I will just say that they do the appeal to mystery of the gaps, that every time it points to the God hypothesis, they have to continually reject it because it goes against their presupposition that God cannot exist and that everything had to come about by natural processes. So guys, I hope you enjoyed that video. Please go ahead and like and subscribe to this. And I would definitely encourage you to check out Stephen Meyer's work. He's got great books and they're all, of course, New York Times bestsellers. So definitely check him out and we'll see you in the next one. But first, don't forget to check out this video.